I don't have a rhyme. Over to you.
Great to see you anyway, Dana. Thank you so much. We begin with a Fox News alert. I'm Shannon Bremen for Brett Baer. We now know when the Justice Department Inspector General intends to release his report on the Hillary Clinton email investigation. That date is June 14th. More on that in just a minute, but first tonight, President Trump says he's ready to walk away from the Kim Jong-un summit. But he says he believes the North Korean leader wants to do something big. The president made the comments following a meeting with Japan's prime minister. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts starts us off tonight. Good evening, John.
Shannon, good evening to you. President Trump is downplaying expectations for next week, saying one meeting likely won't end decades of enmity, even hatred between the two countries. But he is bullish about the prospects of making progress. In the Rose Garden with Japan's Prime Minister today, President Trump was optimistic but realistic about the chances of success at next week's summit with Kim Jong-un.
We have the potential to do something incredible for the world. I am totally prepared to walk. It could happen. Maybe it won't be necessary. I hope it won't be necessary to walk.
President Trump also revealed that if the summit goes well, Kim could be headed to Washington.
And I think it would be well received. I think he would look at it very favorably, so I think that could happen.
Would it be here at the White House or at Mar-a-Lago?
Maybe we'll start with the White House. What do you think?
But there is a long way to go to get there. President Trump today said next week's meeting is just the beginning, that it may take 2 or 3 meetings with Kim to build momentum towards an agreement. The president again insisted the only deal he will agree to is for Kim to give up his weapons program.
They have to denuke. If they don't denuclearize, that will not be acceptable.
In the briefing room today, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Kim personally assured him in 2 meetings that he is prepared to denuclearize, but that the old rules can't apply.
He understands that we can't do it the way we've done it before, that this has to be big and bold, and we have to agree to making major changes.
President Trump added if Kim does it, the rewards will be bountiful.
Are you willing to move down the road toward normalizing relationships, normalizing relations with North Korea?
Normalizing relations is something that I would expect to do, I would hope to do when everything's complete. We would certainly hope to do that.
But even as momentum is building toward next Tuesday's meeting, a potential hiccup on a trip to Pompeo today played down the comments and their significance.
I took him as being a small room and not being serious about the comments. I think it was a bit in jest. Rudy doesn't speak for the administration when it comes to this negotiation and this set of issues.
In the Rose Garden, President Trump also said he and Kim may sign an agreement to finally end the Korean War, though he indicated a peace deal likely won't be ready in time for next week's meeting. And he went some distance to revealing the content of that letter Kim Jong-un had delivered to him last Friday.
It was really a very warm letter, a very nice letter. I appreciated it very much. And nothing other than we look forward to seeing you, and we look forward to the summit, and hopefully some wonderful things will work out.
The prospect of Kim Jong-un being seen here at the White House or the United States and North Korea normalizing relations is really something that nobody could have even predicted a year ago. But President Trump said a normalization of relations won't come until after North Korea has dismantled its nuclear program in a way that is complete, irreversible, and verifiable. Shannon?
All right, so we won't expect that White House visit just anytime too soon.
Don't hold your breath.
John Roberts at the White House, thank you very much. This is another Fox News alert. We expect we will find out 1 week from today what the Justice Department Inspector General has determined about the FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton's email scandal. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge with us tonight. She's got some breaking details. Good evening, Catherine.
Well, thank you, Shannon. This is the firmest date yet from Inspector General Michael E. Horowitz with his report examining the FBI and Justice Department's actions leading up to the 2016 election. The original mandate focused on the Clinton email case, but the title of the congressional hearing suggests the scope may be broader. This comes as the push and pull over another set of secret government records intensifies. Just after midnight, a senior Justice Department official told reporters that DOJ would offer congressional leadership, known as the Gang of Eight, another briefing and access to FBI confidential source records Monday or Tuesday next week. Requested by House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, working alongside Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy, the records are now subject to a congressional subpoena. They are expected to shed more light on allegations an FBI confidential source contacted Trump campaign aides in the early stages of the Russia case. Multiple congressional sources told Fox the documents were promised for this morning, but the Justice Department backed out.
Do it next week. That doesn't help.
The Justice Department official also acknowledged the records were not available to lawmakers at the last session 2 weeks ago, adding, quote, the department and FBI are prepared to brief members on certain questions specifically raised by the Speaker and other members. The department will also provide the documents that were available for review but not inspected by the members, along with some additional material. At his weekly news conference, the Speaker said he fully supports his congressional investigators and expressed frustration.
It shouldn't take a Speaker of the House to have to get involved every one of these times to get the Department of Justice or any department in the executive branch to comply with congressional oversight requests.
Democrats dismissed the president's spy allegations and defended special counsel Robert Mueller.
There's no evidence of a spy collusion. Let's wait to find out what Mueller finds out. And everyone should leave him alone and let him get to the bottom and hear what he has to say.
The House Intelligence Committee's ranking Democrat said the Justice Department offer was fraught with risk, citing the ongoing Russia case. Quote, the further disclosure of investigative materials is inexplicable. The DOJ is now reinforcing a precedent it will have to live with, whether the Congress is in Republican or Democratic hands. Former Justice Department officials said the struggle comes down to powerful competing interests, robust congressional oversight versus the department's need to protect ongoing investigations. Shannon.
Catherine Herridge, thank you very much. Well, stocks were mixed today. The Dow gained 95. The S&P 500 was off 2. NASDAQ lost 54. An analysis of a new government plan to raise rents in public housing would mean increases of roughly 20% in the nation's largest cities. That's according to the Associated Press. The Department of Housing and Urban Development announced the plan in April. Supporters say the increases will motivate renters to get more and better jobs. Critics say it will be a huge blow to millions of low-income families. The White House is launching its first public service campaign with a series of new advertisements aimed at warning young people about the dangers of opioids. The ads are part of an effort to turn the tide against the deadly epidemic. The campaign consists of true stories of young people who have battled addiction. The ads will air on television and across digital and social media platforms. Republicans struggling to find consensus on immigration reform huddled today in the Capitol basement. When they got out, the Republican near civil war over the issue seemed to be simmering down, at least for now. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel tells us why.
House Speaker Paul Ryan appears to have bought himself more time on immigration, with moderates and Democrats close to having enough support to go around him.
A discharge petition will not make law. So I think our members realize it's better to have a process that has a chance of going into law than not.
A powerful
some public guarantee that we're going to take a guest worker program that helps not only our ag communities, our construction communities, and our service communities. We need that labor.
The more complicated matters addressing the young people brought to this country illegally by their parents. And there's talk of a special visa allowing them to stay in the U.S.
I feel more confident leaving this meeting than I was going in, that there was going to actually be an immigration bill drafted that can come to the floor and potentially get to 218.
The latest Fox poll reveals 71% favor allowing illegals brought to the U.S. as children to stay legally, with 23% now opposed.
So please raise your right hands.
While moderates think public opinion is with them, some conservatives say not so fast.
Ultimately, what it comes down to is the citizenship question and how you deal with that. That has been the thorniest issue from the start. It remains still the most difficult issue.
Every one of those bills that might come forward has amnesty in it. And I just say, give me a bill that doesn't have amnesty.
Today, the House Democratic leader took this swipe as the GOP wrestles with this issue again.
This morning, the Republicans are meeting on immigration. Lord knows what will come out with that. Well, hopefully, the Lord knows. We've been praying very hard on it.
Some House Republicans say they're willing to give it a little more time, but a few say they want to see a concrete plan by Tuesday, which means it could be a very busy weekend of negotiation. Shannon?
Mike Emanuel live for us on Capitol Hill. Thank you, Mike. Apprehensions of people trying to enter the country illegally were way up last month. That includes a more than 400% increase in families over the same time last year. From Los Angeles, national correspondent William Lajeunesse looks at the numbers tonight and what they mean.
So how long has he been on the road?
22 days from Honduras, traveling.
A spike in illegal immigration, with new numbers from the Department of Homeland Security showing border arrests almost triple a year ago.
My men and women in the Border Patrol have been making the apprehensions. It's those loopholes in the system that need to be fixed, because those are the pull factors.
Illegal immigration is a mix of push and pull, say officials, with poverty and violence in Central America and increasing bloodshed in Mexico helping drive the numbers.
It's the drugs that are coming across. It is the transnational criminal organizations that are working in the area.
But the Trump administration also blames pull factors like rulings requiring it to release children after 3 to deport Central American children.
So we're trying to inform Congress, we're trying to inform the public about how these structural loopholes affect our ability to secure that border.
He's claiming that this particular group, they're claiming that they were dropped off and crossed on their own.
While apprehensions among Mexican and Central American families are up 435% from a year ago and unaccompanied minors up 329%, May arrests are only up 5% over April, and similar to trends in 2013 and 16. The difference is apprehensions early last year fell to near all-time lows in the wake of President Trump's election. Officials say it is too early to judge the president's anti-immigration policies by these numbers, since many immigrants were already on their way before his pledge to prosecute all adults and separate parents from children detained along the border. Shannon?
William, thank you very much. The U.S. and China have reached a deal allowing the Chinese telecommunication giant ZTE to stay in business in exchange for paying an additional $1 billion in fines and agreeing to let U.S. regulators monitor its operations. The fine comes on top of a roughly $1 billion penalty ZTE has already paid for having sold equipment to North Korea and Iran in violation of U.S. sanctions. In April, the Commerce Department essentially dealt the company a death sentence over the violations. Well, President Trump intervened, seeking a deal that would save ZTE and the jobs it provides to Chinese workers. China is promising to help get to the bottom of another round of illnesses affecting American diplomats. It's a case with similarities to one affecting Americans in Cuba. Correspondent Garrett Tenney takes a look.
I don't think it's going to be isolated to just a couple people. There may even be a link. They clearly were attacked in 2 different countries now.
A mysterious illness is once again striking U.S. diplomats, this time in China. The State Department says it's evacuated a number of Americans from the U.S. consulate in Guangzhou after they experienced unexplained health issues. The diplomats reported subtle and unusual sensations of sound and pressure, which caused symptoms similar to those of a traumatic brain injury, nausea, headaches, hearing loss, and other cognitive issues. State Department spokeswoman Heather Nauert said those individuals returned to the U.S. for further evaluation and a comprehensive assessment of their symptoms. They are only the latest diplomats to have this kind of experience. Last month, when the first medical incident in China was reported, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said it was very similar to the recent health attacks on U.S. personnel in Cuba.
We are working to figure out what took place both in Havana and now in China as well.
After the FBI opened an investigation into those incidents, U.S. officials still aren't sure what caused the injuries or who was responsible. Today, China's foreign ministry said its own investigation into last month's suspected sonic attack turned up empty as well.
We have not found any organization or individual who conducted such an attack. In other words, we have not found any cause or clue that led to the situation mentioned by the U.S.
This week, the State Department announced the creation of a new intra-agency task force to respond to the unexplained health incidents that have affected U.S. diplomats and their families overseas. The unit combines representatives from the Pentagon, the Justice Department, and Health and Human Services, among others, with the hope of treating and investigating those incidents. Shannon?
Garrett Tenney, thank you very much. Up next, the horror of the Las Vegas massacre. We will see and hear what happened. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 2 in St. Louis, as 250,000 union workers at United Parcel Service prepare to go on strike if contract negotiations fall through. More than 90% of the workers approved the right to strike in a vote Tuesday. The current deal expires at the end of July. Fox 5 in New York, as the New Jersey Assembly unanimously approves a bill that would legalize sports betting. The measure now goes to the state Senate, which also is expected to approve it, and then to the desk of Democratic Governor Phil Murphy. It's unclear whether he will sign it into law. And this is a live look at Honolulu from Fox 2. The big story there tonight, a magnitude 5.6 earthquake has struck the summit of the Kilauea volcano. It sent a plume of ash and rock about 10,000 feet.
On 425 now.
Another defection tonight from the Environmental Protection Agency. Chief Scott Pruitt has announced the resignation of his senior legal counsel. It comes following yesterday's resignation of his scheduler. And those follow several others out the door since April amid barrages of ethics complaints and federal inquiries. Well, we're seeing and hearing more terrifying images and sounds from the worst mass shooting in modern American history. Chief Correspondent Jonathan Hunt tonight with new recordings from last.
This video from a security camera on the roof of the Mandalay Bay Hotel gives a disturbing sense of what the shooter himself would have been seeing as he rained high-caliber bullets down on the crowd from his 32nd floor room. And the 911 calls demonstrate the terror felt by his victims.
We have 3 gunshot wounds. Let me get, okay, I'm going to get you to medical. Do not hang up. Please. Do not hang up. 2 of them are critical, I think. I haven't moved in a while.
The rooftop security camera videos also give a sense of the heroism of those who, with little apparent regard to their own safety, stop to help others who might be injured or even dead. This is the 5th batch of records released by Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo. To the frustration of many, he has done so without commenting, without giving any significant updates on the investigation. The FBI has also declined to comment. And it seems the bottom line is we might never know what drove the shooter to do what he did. Investigators have discovered no links to terrorist groups, domestic or international. And we know little other than that the shooter, Stephen Paddock, was a wealthy gambler who had stockpiled an array of weapons and ammunition and spent several days, as these security camera videos show, coming and going from the Mandalay Bay, secretly bringing in his deadly arsenal. The sheriff, who's running for re-election this year, says he plans to deliver a final report on the massacre in August. Shannon?
Jonathan, thank you very much. Some of your private Facebook postings may not have been so private last month. Facebook says about 14 million users had messages intended only for designated groups or individuals available to almost anyone because of a software bug. The company says it has fixed the affected posts and is notifying the users involved. Up next, a ceasefire in Afghanistan with only one side participating. But first, beyond our borders tonight, prosecutors in Guatemala are ordering an investigation into whether disaster protocols were followed concerning the deadly eruption of the volcano of fire. At least 99 people were killed. At least 197 people are listed as missing. The National Disaster Agency has suspended search efforts, saying climatic conditions and still hot volcanic material make it dangerous for the rescuers. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he has no plans to pull his military out of Syria, but he says he's not building permanent facilities there. Putin says the troops will stay in Syria as long as it is to Russia's advantage. An Uzbek man who drove a stolen truck into a crowd in Stockholm last year, killing 5 people and wounding 14 others, is convicted of terror-related murder. By the Afghanistan government. But whether the Taliban will take part, well, that's still a mystery. Here's correspondent Benjamin Hall.
For now, it's a one-sided ceasefire announced by the Afghan president, but without a response from the Taliban. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, seen here meeting President Trump last year, said the week-long ceasefire would go into effect next week and last through the Eid holiday, but that neither the Islamic State or Al-Qaeda are included.
I order all Afghan security and defensive forces in all parts of the country to stop all kinds of military operations on armed Afghan Taliban.
It comes at a time when the US has increased its troop presence in the country, and General Nicholson, commander of US and NATO forces in Afghanistan, has said that US troops would honor the Afghan president's call. Secretary Pompeo issued a statement saying that ceasefire did not prohibit operations to defend coalition forces from attack, adding that the United States looked to the Taliban to honor the ceasefire. But there has been no response yet from the terror group, who now threaten 70% of the country. The ceasefire was called after religious clerics met in the grand tent of tribal leaders to denounce terrorism. They demanded the Taliban restore peace to allow foreign troops to leave the country, and they issued a fatwa, a religious edict, against suicide bombings. Highlighting the difficulties ahead, a suicide bomber for the Islamic State then targeted the meeting, killing 14 and wounding 20.
There was a huge blast that rocked this area. I lay on the ground for a while, and then I went to the site of the blast and saw many dead bodies.
This ceasefire is unexpected. It's seen by some as a strategic move to try and get the Taliban to the negotiating table, but it's seen by others as a strategic mistake which will allow the Taliban to regroup and rearm. Shannon?
Benjamin Hall, thank you very much. The Israeli military says it dropped leaflets across the Gaza Strip today, warning residents to stay far from the Israeli border during a mass protest. Military officials are expecting a large turnout at Friday's demonstration, raising the likelihood of violence and bloodshed. More than 115 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli fire during these near-weekly protests. Tonight, we continue our ongoing series about the dangers of U.S. waste disposal at American military bases in the Middle East. This evening, correspondent Leah Gabriel talks with one of the men who was assigned the task of trying to clean things up.
This is bad. It's bad.
In 2007, Brewer presented his findings to top officials at the Department of Defense. They were so shocked by what they saw, they sent him further up the chain of command, all the way to General Petraeus. Brewer came up with a solution: incinerators. While not as cost-effective as burn pits, they would mean a far less toxic environment.
General Petraeus was, he was for it. But now the problem is in enforcing it.
Fox News confirmed with General Petraeus that he approved installation of incinerators, but that it was a tremendous logistical task. He added that it was just one of many issues they were dealing with while trying to turn the tide of the war in Iraq. He emphasized that the need to protect troops in combat was paramount. Brewer says that the response was slow, right up until he left his post as an inspector in 2012. Did the problem continue?
Yep.
CENTCOM officials tell Fox News that incinerators are currently in place on more developed military bases, but burn pits still exist on remote bases.
Our veterans need our help now.
Today, congressional hearings were held on burn pits. Both veterans and their families attended. They want the VA to provide assistance and not deny medical coverage. Department of Defense officials were scheduled to attend, but those officials pulled a no-show.
A VFW member who was exposed to burn pits called me, and she told me how her children were born with birth defects, including seizures, how they were born with high levels of heavy metals in their blood, and how she had to get a hysterectomy in her late 20s. This is not normal.
Colonel Brewer fears his concerns about the pits have come true, and thousands of veterans need help.
There's people right now in their 30s that was there in their 20s that have major pulmonary issues because they served in combat in Iraq or Afghanistan. I'm not always proud of my government. We owe it to them.
Available to them, but some veterans advocacy groups say this is not enough and veterans are being ignored. General Petraeus says now is the time to help those who sign up to serve in a time of war. Shannon?
Leah Gabriel, thank you very much. There are new suggestions tonight about the possibility of life on Mars, either now or in the past. NASA scientists say their Curiosity rover has found potential building blocks of life in an ancient Martian lake bed. It's also confirmed sharp seasonal increases of methane in the atmosphere. Scientists say they cannot rule out a biological source. Well, President Trump gives his predictions on the North Korean summit. We will get reaction from the panel when we come back.
We're doing the same with yours. Preparation H. Get comfortable with it.
The summit is all ready to go, subject always to change. You never know in this world. I think I'm very well prepared. I don't think I have to prepare very much. It's about attitude. It's about willingness to get things done. This will be at a minimum. We'll start with perhaps a good relationship, and that's something that's very important toward the ultimate making of a deal.
The complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula is the only outcome that we will find. Is the only outcome that we will find acceptable. And North Korea has confirmed to us its willingness to denuclearize.
Though pretty much everyone agrees that's not going to happen on June 12th, let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, editor-in-chief for the Weekly Standard. David Catanese, senior politics writer for U.S. News and World Report. And Matt Schlapp, contributor with The Hill. Gentlemen, welcome to all of you. Steve, I'll start with you. The president's statement, I don't think I have to prepare very much. People are jumping on that, but he's always talked about the relational aspect of these negotiations. He's very, he's not traditional about the way he's handled this, but it seems like he's moved the ball further than just about any other U.S. president.
Well, it depends how you look at it. I mean, the Bush administration went out of its way not to have face-to-face bilateral meetings with North Korea. And the time that it did it, Christopher Hill, who was the envoy, did it without telling Condoleezza Rice at first because it was thought to be such a concession to the North Koreans. So he has given a lot because he's having the meetings. And I think the kinds of comments the president's making have not been helpful. I mean, he deserves credit for changing the failed policy of the previous three administrations, no doubt about it. It's a different conversation. We're not outsourcing to China. That's helpful. The things he's saying now that he doesn't need to prepare, that China's committed to, or North Korea's committed to denuclearization, that this has been an open and honorable process, those things I think are not helpful. We should be very clear with the North Koreans that they will denuclearize, we will verify it, it will be irreversible, and that's it. They have an opportunity to do this. This is their only opportunity to do it, or we're walking away and they're in trouble.
Yeah, and David, that's what he continued to say today. I mean, I will walk out at any point when I don't think we're actually going to get to that goal.
Well, look at how far we've come. Last year, he
That's it. They have an opportunity to do this. This is their only opportunity to do it, or we're walking away and they're in trouble.
Yeah, and David, that's what he continued to say today. I mean, I will walk out at any point when I don't think we're actually going to get to that goal.
Well, look at how far we've come. Last year, he was calling him Little Rocket Man and threatening their annihilation. And today he said, yeah, we'll have him over to the White House and, have a powwow. So look, a week could go by, he could have this summit, and he can decide he's never going to deal with him again, frankly. I think the one interesting aspect that I'm focused on more is that we're not hearing as much about what North Korea gets out of this. What do they want out of it? And I think that is going to be the standard by which to measure this. We know what we want, denuclearization. Pompeo said it today very clearly. What do they want? Are they just using Trump as a prop to stand next to? And how do we know what they want coming out of the meeting?
Yeah, and the president today talked about the economic benefit that he's hoping to get them all situated with China, with South Korea, with others. He said have stepped up, but it sounds like, Matt, that's the part of the equation that they want and that they desperately need.
Yeah, what President Trump deserves a lot of credit for is this ultimate pressure campaign and the idea that China believed that the President of the United States was serious. The second issue is that by a lot of people's accounts, the Kims are out of money. Or they're running out of money. They're in a different financial situation they were in before. They actually need to have this go better because they have to have the spigot for the resources from China and other places get turned on again. So I'm very hopeful, and I actually am very hopeful that the president will walk away if it's a bad deal. He doesn't have to do this immediately. If they need America's help and they need America to take the pressure off China, then he's got to get to a deal. And if they've got to get to a deal, I'm kind of happy we have a president who likes this kind of process. I think that actually plays to his strength, and I'm not that worried that he'll walk away from a bad deal. If he walks away from Singapore, the negotiations, I'm going to be good with it because I know we're going to go to step 2.
Okay, let's see what the folks out there in across America think. We have brand new Fox News polling, and there is one question. President Trump and Kim Jong on the meeting, who would get the better deal? 40% say Donald Trump, 30% say Kim Jong-un, 17% say neither or the same, 12% say unsure. So, Steve, at least the folks who answered this poll, the biggest number of them, the plurality of them, think that if these two do sit down and go head-to-head, they have more confidence in our president.
I hope they're right. The Kims have won with 3 previous American presidents, I would say, and every time that we've sat down with them, they've been broke. They've been on the verge of going broke, and one of the things that's given them lifelines again and again and again is U.S. concessions, preemptive U.S. concessions. We've offered them time and again for promises. Again and again and again is U.S. concessions, preemptive U.S. concessions. We've offered them time and again for promises of denuclearization. They haven't denuclearized, obviously, or we wouldn't be having these conversations. Look, I don't think China's been necessarily a good partner in this. I think China's been an uneven partner. They've put pressure on at times. It's been helpful. They've also restarted flights between, or announced that they're going to restart flights between Beijing and Pyongyang. We also have the Syrian question, which I think is a pretty significant question. North Korean state TV announces that Bashar al-Assad, a history of proliferation between North Korea and Syria, wants a meeting and will potentially be getting a meeting with Kim Jong-un. That is a